Hello everyone and welcome to today's webcast, Habits of Managed Service Business Masters. Today's topic is tracking revenue metrics. I'm your host, Nick Cavalancia from Tech Evangelism. In the quest to build a profitable and predictable business, you obviously need to keep an eye on revenue, right? You need to know what's making you money, what services are most profitable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to actually improve your business, you need to be looking just a bit deeper. And you think about utilizing metrics that will identify both where your greatest successes are as well as where your greatest challenges are. So the question kind of becomes, how do managed service masters track their revenue? So in this first webinar in a 6-part series on the habits of master managed service businesses, I'm joined by Ali Mahmood from SolarWinds MSP, where he and I are going to discuss what specific revenue metrics you should be watching, whether your MSP is big or small, how to make them actionable in order to improve your business. So first off, Ali, let me welcome you to today's webcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much, Nick, and happy to be here.
Excellent. Let's cover a couple of housekeeping details for you guys in the audience real quick. We try to keep these around 30 minutes in length. They often go over a little bit. Ali and I tend to have very good conversations, so we hope to try and respect your time, but at the same time, if we're providing you a lot of value, there's a lot of questions that are coming in from you guys in the audience, etc. They can go over just a little bit. We do welcome questions at any point in time. Feel free to put those in, questions, comments, I don't know, anecdotes, whatever it is you feel that kind of the mood strikes you at that moment, please put that in there. And then this webinar is being recorded, and the slides will be posted a little later on. So let's go ahead and jump in. And the first topic here is sort of why even have metrics in the first place. Now, as you think about why having metrics, you do have some specific agendas for your business. You want to grow. Of course, if you're really trying to plan for your company to grow, you have a projected kind of goal in mind. It's always like you never go on vacation saying, hey, let's just all get in the car, we'll start driving and figure out where we're going to go once we get in the car. You know that you want to go to, let's say, Disney World, and you have a goal in mind. And so what you want to do is you have this plan of how you're going to get to that goal. You should have a plan. If you don't, you definitely want to have one in the same mindset. You're going to Disney World, you need to make sure that you have enough time to drive or fly or however you're going to get there. And you need to also know ahead of time, what do I need to wear and what are we going to be doing there? How much money do we need to have? You have a plan. Even when you go on vacation, you need to have a plan that aligns to the goals in your business. But then there's this sort of question along the way of, well, how is it going? How's the plan going? Are you meeting your expectations? I kind of laugh because in today's day and age, it's very different from when I was a kid. In today's day and age, when we were driving to Disney World, I'm just going to stick with the analogy here. You have GPS on your phone telling you, Google Maps will say, you're going to arrive at 11:15. You are on the fastest route. They're telling you all the time, everything's just fine. But when I was a kid, my parents had a paper map, and they would have to look at the paper map, and they have to guess what time they're going to be there, and they think it's about this many miles, and you're dividing by the miles per hour in the car, and you're sort of gauging as you go how well you're actually doing. And so having metrics, specifically revenue metrics, what we're talking about today, as a way to measure your business is actually going to allow you to figure out how's it going. And in essence, if you can't measure what's going on in your business, you can't grow. Now, Ali, I've done kind of a high level looking at why metrics. Any thoughts on adding here of why businesses should be just looking at metrics from a 10,000-foot view?
I think it's like you said, and I love the idea that most managed service providers have some semblance of a goal for their business, right? They know which direction they want to head in. They might not have written it down exactly that I need to get this revenue or, we need to add these services. It might not be documented to the nth degree, but you know where you want to take your business. You want to be successful. You have a rough, 10,000, 30,000 foot plan to get there, but do you have that compass on a daily basis that tells you that you're on track, right? And I love the idea that you can't grow if you can't measure. And it's just one of those things in business that you know where you want to go, but if you don't know how things are going today, how do you know that you're on track to get there? And metrics really are the way to do that. And the caveat to all of that, of course, is that everyone's busy, right? Especially managed service business owners. You don't have time to be spending all day knee-deep in metrics. It's just a checkpoint, right? Are we on track? It's that safety net, that assurance that, yes, we are heading in the direction of the plan. Now I'm going to get back to the grind, to the job. But how do I check in and make sure that things are working out?
And I would add to that, for those of you that don't have a goal for your business, it's important to have this sort of a tangential, because we really want to talk about metrics, but you should have a goal. If your goal is, I want to have, let's say you have 5 customers today. You should have a goal of, by the end of the year, I'd like to have 10. And it doesn't have to be the number 10, but the whole idea is, if at least you have a goal, then you're always thinking about, how do I get to that goal? How do I achieve that? And then you can measure how is it going. Otherwise, there's no point really doing metrics, because you're trying to measure against the goal always. So you need to have the goal as well. So Ali, let's do this. Let's talk about breaking down revenue, because revenue at a high level is certainly one metric. Am I making more money? But it's not enough here, because it's obfuscating some of the detail. There's an idea that's been around for many years called just-in-time inventory. It came out probably 20 years ago. And one of the reasons why it came out is when companies would just have big inventories, it kind of hid problems that existed in production. Like, am I producing enough things to stick in inventory, and is stuff going out fast enough or slowly, or what's going on in terms of putting stuff into inventory and taking things out of inventory? So somebody came up with the concept of just-in-time inventory, so that you can end up seeing whether you're having problems in production putting things in, taking things out of inventory, and fulfilling orders, and so on. Different line of work, but the idea is as you get kind of bloated, you end up losing some of the detail. And so I think having just total revenue as one of your metrics certainly is valuable. I made more money this year than I made last year. That's good, but it's not enough to demonstrate that how you're growing and where your challenges are. As you can see here at the end of this bullet, it's only demonstrating that you are growing, but not how you're doing it.
And exactly right. There could be rot inside the business. There could be problems. There could be a tool that's failing you. There could be an employee that's underperforming. There could be all these challenges. And if you have the right data to show that, and you fix that problem, your revenue would grow faster, your profitability would grow faster. But just looking at revenue as a blanket success factor is only telling you that parts of the business are working, but it doesn't show you any of the issues or how to overcome and overachieve on your revenue goals.
Yeah, it's like saying the car is still moving on the way to Disney World, but you secretly don't know that, it's like the old joke of, like, let's put a piece of black tape over the check engine light, The car's still running, but you're not actually where there's a problem inside. So it does actually hide a lot of issues that are just unexposed. So let's talk about a couple of methods, Ali, of measuring, and maybe we can go a little bit back and forth here about breaking revenue down. The first one here, I think, is looking at average deal size. And for you guys in the audience, this is more about taking a look at either what kind of services you're offering, how much revenue is being brought in per new customer. This could be a net new customer. This could be offering an additional service. But just looking at the average deal size gives you a sense of sort of what you're feeding in. The idea of like garbage in, garbage out, or whatever you put in is what's going to come out. If you look at the average deal size, you're kind of looking at the funnel inward. What is coming in? If you're wondering why you don't have enough revenue at the end of the year, it might start with a metric like that, because you don't have a large enough average deal size in the first place. And you're doing lots of little deals, but that means lots of work to get a little bit of money. The next one is net new deals, just looking at, in addition to deal size, maybe it's the number of net new deals. It could be a deal size that is specific to net new customers, and just seeing how well you are and how good you are at acquiring new customers and selling them on. Let's say you've got 5 different kind of service offerings that you provide. One is sort of RMM, and then maybe you've got security, and then maybe you've got backup, and the list kind of goes on. You've got a couple of things here, and you're looking and seeing what those net new deals look like, and you're measuring the revenue from those as well. And then I'll tie in here, and then maybe Ali, you can provide some commentary here. Excuse me, is around upsell revenue, from the standpoint of you've got one service, and you might actually break down services into a couple of tiers. We've got a whole webinar that Ali and I have done before on breaking services into a number of tiers and defining very specific services that are easy to understand for your customers. And maybe you've got it in kind of a good, better, best kind of model where they can get the good RMM, or they can get the better RMM, or the best RMM service. And maybe you're trying to look at the revenue for upselling them from, let's say, good to better or good to best, as the case might be, or even adding on additional services. Ali, thoughts on any of these couple of methodologies here?
Yeah, I think that, managed services on average is a small business, and most small business owners share a common problem of cash flow. And it's this challenge of making sure that I have enough money to pay for the tools, keep the lights on, pay the salaries, and then take some extra leftover cash, reinvest it back in the business to hire that next technician or to run a marketing campaign, to hire a salesperson finally. That's really the goal, right? You know the things you want to do, but cash flow is the primary thing that's restricting you from all of these goals. And what I would say is when you look at some of the best, most successful MSPs in the world, they hold themselves to a profitability metric of 63 to 65% profitability, gross margin on all the services that they deliver. And you need to have those kinds of lines in the sand if you want to be successful. Because I know for a fact that most MSPs on the call today have customers that are draining your support lines, they're eating up all your time, and they're not providing you a lot of money. And you know your business better than I do, so Nick and I would never give you advice like fire that customer or do this, do that. You know the business and what you need, but at some point you have to decide, this is what a good customer looks like, and I'm going to try and win more of these people. These are what bad customers look like, and I need to start saying no to these people or restricting them or charging more for support. And guess what? If some of them leave because I start charging more for certain activities, the ones that stay will pay extra to offset the ones that leave, and I will actually have less call volume, more profitability at the end of the day. So, profitability is one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to managed services business mastery, and just make sure that you have programs in place, that you have everything set up so that you deliver services, you have the right customers, and you have metrics for all of that, right? So one MSP, and this is kind of my last point, and then I'll give it back to you, Nick. One of my favorite MSPs out of Silicon Valley is Eric Rockwell, and he goes on Reddit all the time and does the Ask Me Anythings. So like one MSP to another kind of conversations, and I just sit and soak up everything he says. And he says that he has metrics down to the nth degree on everything, and one of them is the number of tickets per end user per customer, right? So if he's getting, on average, more than 2 tickets per month per end user at his customers, that's a nuisance customer, and something has to be done to resolve that situation. Doesn't mean firing the customer. It means fixing either the problems in the network that they're having, like what is the cause of all of these tickets? Why are they distracting us so much? Did we not fix something? Is it that particular customer is just difficult? Or is there something we can fix proactively to drive down this ticket volume going forward?
What I love about what you're saying is this is really like peeling an onion, and that's really what metrics are about. The high-level stuff like average deal size. We start at the top, revenue. I made $50 this year. Great, okay, and then you break it down. What's the average deal size? Well, the average deal size was $5 a customer. And now you start peeling away the onion, and I love what you're talking about, because really when you talk about even, let's say, that example of Eric Rockwell's 2 tickets per customer, or is it per user or per customer per month?
Per user.
Per user per month, right, at each customer. Now we're really peeling the onion away around profitability. And so I've even got here on the slides here where we're tying services back into the mix, because at the top, the 3 bullets above, average deal size, net new deals, upsell revenue, that's just revenue. That's just talking about the dollars, or the, whatever it happens with your denomination, and if you're in a different country right now, but the amount of money being made per deal. But then you start tying in the services that you're actually offering, and we're peeling away this onion a little bit. You went a little deeper down the rabbit hole, which is totally cool, nothing wrong with that. But here I'm just trying to demonstrate we are doing the same kind of thing here. So now you start tying in, well, if my average deal size is X, why? Why? And I didn't mean the letter Y. I mean, why is it only X? And you might look in to see, well, how good are you at cross-selling that 3rd, 4th, 5th service into a given customer? How good are you at increasing the growth of your services and your what's the word I want to have? How much you're into every customer? What percentage of desktops do you manage? Percentage of servers? There's a word for that, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But you're sort of penetration. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word there for some reason. You have the penetration into a given customer, and you want to bring those in, and now you start peeling away the onion and coming up with more ways, more metrics to look at in order to figure out what's going on with your revenue and why is your revenue? It could, like you said, it might just be not be a bad customer. It might be the fact that maybe, if I look at the services I sold that customer, that's a real nuisance. I actually did like a one-off deal with them, and I didn't put them in some kind of standardized, product offering. I just said like, yeah, I'll manage your network for you. Well, that was a bad choice. On your part, you got to fix that, and then now you know how to fix the problem. So, thoughts there, Ali?
Yeah, and I think there are good metrics and bad metrics. Good metrics give you insight so you can solve a problem, makes your business better, and makes your customer happier. Bad metrics are just numbers that stare you in the face all day long that you're not doing anything about, right? So what I like to see an MSP do is run a project, do an analysis, get a dashboard that says, our workstation adoption is 2%. We need to up that. So they get all their techs to go out, talk to every customer, do a strong push on, increasing workstation monitoring, workstation backup, whatever it is. And then once that's done, you say, we went from 2% to 6%. It cost us this much time, energy, effort, everything. And we're happy at that number. So guess what? We're going to ignore workstation adoption going forward, and we're going to move on to the next area of the business to improve, right? It doesn't mean I have to monitor workstation adoption every single day for the rest of my life. A good metric is something you look at that says, why are we doing poorly there? Or why are we doing so well here, right? Why at one customer is the call volume so low, is the revenue so high, we're making so much money, I want more of that. And then we look at the other customers where, the call volume's really high, profitability is low, and I want less of that, right? So the metrics should really give you insight into both of those situations to say, this is how we're going to replicate success, and this is how we're going to eliminate cost centers in the business.
That's perfect. Now, as I'm thinking about the conversation that we're having, for some of you guys in the audience, you might be what I'll call a quote-unquote, I'm doing air quotes in my office, larger MSP. Maybe you've got a number of technicians, you've got a staff of 10, 15, 20. But then there are also some of you in the audience that might be more of like it's just me. I've been there, by the way. I owned what would be the predecessor to an MSP in some ways, because it was about 20 years ago before we had this. You guys have great tools today. I didn't, but I did manage. I had a number of clients that were all anything from 2 to probably 50 desktops, standardized the environments, that kind of thing, had SLAs. I mean, it was a predecessor. It was an MSP, but we didn't call it that back then. And at one point, though, when I first started, it, of course, was just me. And so being able to take some of these metrics like average deal size and net new deals, you're not thinking necessarily in those terms because your business is probably a bit less sophisticated. It's more like I show up, we make a deal, a handshake, and then I get checks every month, or something like you're thinking of it a little bit differently. But because you do have tools and you do have processes in place, even if it's something as simple as, let's say, logging a call from the customer into a help desk ticket system, and then when you resolve it, you mark it as being closed. So at least you kind of use the help desk ticket system as a checklist of things that need to get done or whatever. You have some level of processes here. And so what you guys probably need is some revenue metrics that are probably a bit more in the weeds, where they're more closer to the way that you actually work every day. And so we've got a couple of them here. And you should think about these in a couple of ways. And you see in the parentheses there, think about these metrics kind of overall for your entire business. And then also think about this per customer. And the reason, again, is we're trying to peel the onion away a little bit here and there. And then as I go through these 4 with Ali, you might think about doing these metrics in periods of time, per month, per quarter. Some kind of, whatever makes sense to your business, and you're going to have to figure that out. I love the fact, Ali, that you said, hey, we're not going to tell you what the answer actually is. In a lot of ways, it's impossible for us to do that because each one of you has a very different business. And so we're trying to at least give you an opportunity to level set your thinking, focus on the problem here, and then decide how you should apply the things we've talked about today back to the way that you operate your business. So the 4 metrics that we've got here, the first one is just looking at ticket volume. Again, think about it overall, think about it per customer. You even heard Ali mentioning maybe it's the number of tickets per customer, or sorry, per user per customer in a given time frame, maybe a month or whatnot. Same kind of thing applies here. You start looking at where is my ticket volume in my business. And if you know that, for the sake of conversation, that every, I'm making this up, 50-seat customer that you have brings you the same amount of revenue in, you use ticket volume to figure out, well, where is it that I'm losing revenue? Because at this, companies 1, 2, and 3, or customers 1, 2, and 3, excuse me, all have about the same ticket volume. But customer 4, holy moly, they are 3 times everybody else. There, where part of your problem is. You've peeled away the onion. Ali, thoughts on ticket volume?
I think it's what I said, right? It's, ticket volume is a distraction to you. There are only so many hours in a day. And this is totally cliche at this point, but the advice to most MSP business owners is work on your business, not in your business. So don't fight fires all day long for every single customer if you can avoid it, right? Try to lower the ticket volume, free up your time, your mind space, so that you can go after the real problems in the business and come up with a process that solves that problem, hire a person to solve that problem, or come up with a program that actually makes tickets profitable so that you can always staff people according to ticket volume, right? That's what a business owner will do. If you put yourself into technician mode and you actually do the work, you'll just be distracted all day long with those tickets. So the goal of a ticket metric, and to get the number of tickets per end user is not very difficult, right? It's just total tickets per customer, and then the number of seats they have at that business. You just divide by the number of seats, right? So if it's 200 tickets and it's 100 employees, that's 2 tickets per employee. That's really what you're looking for at the end of the day is, and once you have those metrics, the best thing you can do is to have them all on one page, right? So you have 10 customers, 20 customers, doesn't matter. Put all of your 20 customers on one page and compare them apples to apples, right? So when I have the number of tickets per end user, per machine, and I compare that customer by customer, you are going to see that one of those customers is the really noisy one. And you don't need a dashboard to tell you that they're noisy, but the actual metric is going to show you just how much of a distraction they are, right? When you see that they're 3 times as noisy as everyone else, are they giving you 3 times the amount of revenue? And that's what it comes down to, right, is are people, what's a good customer look like versus a really noisy one that's draining your profitability?
Yeah, perfect. So the other one here is hours billed. Some of you might be even more still in a break-fix mode, where it's just you're billing per hour, hourly rates, that sort of thing. Or you're looking at if you can quantify, tickets back to hours based on your business model. But even just looking at, again, very small MSPs, you might be looking at how many hours have you billed, again, using the same kind of thinking that Ali just talked about, looking at across your customers, per customer, how many hours are you billing each one? And in some ways, you could even kind of correlate these 2 sets of data points together. Like if you are doing, tickets, but you're doing things based on hours billed, and you don't have it as a monthly service where it's a cost per endpoint or per user or something along those lines, you could still see, am I billing more hours? If a ticket equates to, I'm making this up, a half an hour worth of work, can you do the math and go, all right, the hours billed should equate to, 3 tickets. Oh my gosh, it equates to 6 tickets. I did 2-3 times the work for the same amount of money. So hours billed is another way for very small MSPs to take a look at how your revenue is coming in, where it's coming in from, and where your problems lie.
Yeah, and there are tools out there to track that kind of stuff. So don't waste all of your time manually filling out timesheets and manually counting everybody's hours. Just use a PSA ticketing system, things like that, and it's going to track the hourly output, and you're going to be able to compare person by person what everybody's putting out. So all you want to do is benchmark people against people, right? Who's my best technician? Who could use some help? Does an underperforming technician need some mentorship from a senior person? Or do I need to share the quality of customers among my technicians and then compare customers against customers, right? That's the goal at the end of the day. And you should have a tool to help you do that easily without breaking the bank.
Perfect. I love you do my work for me, Ali. I love when you do my segues because that's really good. So I'm going to actually bring the last 2 bullets up because they're actually about technicians. And the first one is the revenue per technician. That's another way if you have at least a couple of, it's not just you, a couple of techs on your bench that are doing work, and you're trying to figure out how to tactically look to see how your revenue is being generated, look at it per technician. Ali, you just actually peeled the onion away a little bit and went down the rabbit hole and said these are a couple of problems that even could exist. So with revenue per technician, it could be you have either one that's lazy, It's possible, right? You see that Billy isn't generating, he's generating half the revenue all the other techs are, or it could be that you don't have, like you said, an equal sort of disbursement of, or distribution of customers across your technicians, and so poor Billy's got the really crappy customer that, you know, you're doing all these tickets that we keep talking about, the 3 times the amount, and Billy's trying to, you know, do all this work, but it's all for the same amount of money every month in terms of some kind of monthly paid service offering. So you get an idea even just from there that there's a problem, and that lets you to peel the onion away. And then tech utilization, same thing, could be the number of tickets each technician is putting in on a daily basis, and figure out if you've got one that's overburdened, one that's, you know, one that's not as underutilized. I love the fact that, Ali, that you said work on your business and not in your business. And I'm thinking about like tech utilization. If I saw that poor Billy was being absolutely overutilized, has, let's say, 1.5 times the tickets every other tech has on my bench, while I'm working on my business, I'm going, well, gee, Billy actually might not be a very happy employee, and I like Billy, and Billy does a lot of great work. I probably need to fix that. See, I'm working on my business. I'm not working in my business. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure that my employees are happy, that they like what they're doing, and so on. And so even seeing something like that helps me figure out how to redistribute the work so that the techs are utilized properly, that they're bringing in an equal amount of revenue per tech. And the goal overall for any of these is really to make the business predictable. And then when we talk about working on your business, it's how do I make it predictable so that I know that if I add another customer or add another tech or add another service, I can figure out how much revenue is supposed to come in, how much time their tech is supposed to spend, and so on. I just said a lot there, Ali, and I went on a couple of tangents, but thoughts? Any other thoughts on the technician-specific metrics?
I don't think on specific metrics, but just the fact that I personally am a huge fan of metrics because there's no emotion in them, right? And what happens to a lot of small business owners is, you know, one of your top 5 customers comes screaming at you because of something one of your techs did, or there's some big fire that they're mad at you about. You need to have data to get to the truth, right? Because angry customers are always going to be noisier than the happy 10 customers, right? So once you have all the data in front of you and you know that your techs are doing a good job, you know your business is doing a good job, that's data for you to discuss with the customer. Or when you look at all of the data, and let's say one of your techs got, you know, 10 compliments from a customer, maybe it's because they're more personable, but you have other techs that are they're just killing it with service delivery, and you need the data to prove all of that, right? Just take the emotion, take the anecdotes, the one screaming customer, the one super happy customer, and get to the truth and find out what really is happening in your business.
No, love that thinking. I really do. I love it. It's because metrics are dispassionate. They're just numbers, and they establish the truth. I've lived that life where people are pointing fingers at each other, and I'm like, well, let's look at the data and figure out what the data says. And the data will demonstrate that, you know, Billy sits on his butt all day long, or Billy's working his tail off in the case of technician utilization and so on, and no one can say otherwise, because we always do tell people, if it's not in whatever system was appropriate, in this case could be a PSA, you know, some kind of ticketing, whatever the case is, or it could be some other system depending on what we're talking about, whether it's sales or marketing or something like that. But if it's not in that system, it never happened, it doesn't exist, period. And that gets your techs to make sure they're logging all their tickets and so on, that kind of thing. And it helps you really get a sense of what's going on in your business. Now, the next part here is trying to make sure that these metrics matter. And you've heard Ali and I talking a bit about the metrics and that you should run them and so on, but there is a chance that you start getting into the weeds and you start figuring out different ways to kind of calculate your business. And in some cases, you might just be spinning your wheels coming up with numbers. You know, you come up with saying, oh, the average number of hours per customer is. Okay, well, what do you do with that? Is that actually a good metric or a bad metric? And what I mean is not is it helping your business or telling you that your business is suffering. I mean, is it actually, from a metric standpoint, is it even helpful for you to look at that metric? So you want to make sure that metrics matter. And the idea here is that making sure that the metric is actionable is what makes it valuable. And here's a statement that I was given probably 20 years ago. And I was doing a bunch of reports. I was working as an IT technician. We were looking at a help desk system we had back then, running a bunch of reports. And the reports sort of represent the metrics, right? Because you are building some reports to figure out for each customer how the specific metric looks and so on. And the statement that was given to me was that a report, in this case being analogous to a metric, a report is only as good as the action you take because of it. Think about that. I'm going to say it one more time. A report is only as good as the action you take because of it. If you get a report that your house is on fire and you do nothing about it and your house burns to the ground, then there was no point getting that report. The report was useless to you. It's when you do something with that report that actually makes it and gives it the value. And so you have to make sure that every metric that you look at, that there's an action because of it. And I've managed a number of teams where people would come up with metrics, that they come up with this great metric that looks fantastic. I go, what are you going to do about it? And they go, well, then I said, there's no point running the metric then. You've got to have something that is going to become, because of it, that makes it valuable there. So, Ali, thoughts on just actionable metrics?
Yeah, I would think that it's not just that you said a report that's not actionable is useless. I would say it's less than useless because it's actually a distraction, right?
I love you. You're tremendous, man. Thank you.
It's just one of those situations where I see this trend in other areas of industries, businesses, et cetera, and marketing has gone very, very metrics heavy in the last 5 years. And so people are looking at every little nth degree, like how many people visited a page, how many people clicked the button, et cetera. And it is possible, and I see it all the time, that people get distracted with these numbers that don't really mean anything at the end of the day, right? Like we have all this activity over here, but nobody's buying the product. So the marketing's not working, right? It doesn't matter that you had 10,000 people visit the website. It doesn't matter that 10,000 clicked a button, 10,000 visited a page, they read all your marketing copy. Nobody signed up to try the product, to get your free estimate, to do anything. So make sure that at the end of the day, your metrics are actually driving your business goals.
Yeah, wonderful. So I've got some parts on the slide looking at a couple of examples, but I think we've somewhat talked these through in terms of the actions you might take. But the intent here, and I'll kind of walk through these again anyways a little bit, and Ali, maybe if you've got some commentary as well. I was thinking about, sort of an if and then. So, for example, if I'm going to hit the revenue per technician, and maybe you'll hit the average deal size, or we'll figure this out by the time we're done talking. But you think about if you see, this goes back to my example earlier of, like, let's say revenue per technician. If you see that one tech is generating so much more revenue than the others, Ali, you talked about sort of, I forget the word used exactly, but maybe you have a technician that either needs to be nurtured and brought up, or learn something, or taken under somebody else's wing. You might have one technician that is absolutely crushing it, and you find that with your metrics, and you wonder why. And you find out that that particular technician has a set of training underneath them and education to them of a specific task set. Let's say they know PowerShell scripting really well, making this up as I go along. And so they can create a bunch of custom scripts that help with the automation that they're doing at the customers that they manage, but they're not sharing any of that knowledge with the other technicians. See, the revenue through technician, the metric on its own just said one guy's crushing it. The action you take is to find out why are they crushing it, and then you start doing things to build your business. You're working on your business to say, let me at least, if nothing else, share those PowerShell scripts with everybody else so they can do the same automation. There, you just improve your business. Or you find out that really what you probably should do is maybe you pay for your techs to go to an online or after-hours PowerShell training of some kind so they can learn how to do PowerShell like that one technician. So there, we just took a metric and made it actionable. Ali, thoughts on that, or maybe the average deal size, or one of those two?
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying about coaching technicians and kind of uncovering the truth of who your team is. And I think as a leader, that's your job, is to really crack the code on the strengths and weaknesses of every team player, because it's not, technicians as an island, it's technicians as a team, right? Your company is a team. And knowing that so-and-so is the best person at scripting, maybe they should do all the scripting and have, a prodigy under them or something. But you know how to structure your team. Metrics are just going to uncover the truth about who they are. You actually have to choose what to do with that.
I'm laughing because there's no team in technician, but there is I. Which doesn't help your point, but I just thought that's really funny. So anyways, So let's do this, you guys. I want to kind of sum this up. If you have any questions, stick those in the Q&A box at the end of the kind of summing things up. We'd love to answer any questions you have. There's currently none, but we'd be happy to. We're over the half-an-hour mark, but we'll probably take another 2 minutes of your time and let you guys get out of here. If you have questions, put those in there. What I'd like to do is I'm going to sum this up with a couple bullets. And Ali, if you've got any closing thoughts as well, I'd love to have you add those in. And you know, if you're going to try and get to that goal, which of course is to grow your business. No one ever wants to make less revenue, you know, next year than over this year. You always want to make more. You have to have a plan that's actionable, right? And in order to get to that plan, you have to know where you are and know how you're going to get there. I put this, you know, you can't know where you're going without knowing where you are. You've got to figure out, where am I today? Why am I there today? And what parts of my business need to be improved? And so if you take a look at, I wrote this is, the metrics turn into actions. That isn't supposed to be greater than, it's sort of like an arrow, but metrics will turn into actions. Actions should turn into improvement, and improvement should equate to more revenue, or I'll even kind of put in a parenthetical thought there, more profitability, which is really, I think, the point here. So we really want to make sure that you're looking at the metrics that you have, measuring your business, starting with revenue, and working in deeper and deeper, peeling the onion. Ali, any last thoughts?
Maybe just on the, you know, you can't get to where you're going if you don't know where you are. So Nick has the Disneyland analogy. I have the, you know, sailing ship analogy. So I picture a business like a boat in the middle of the ocean, right? Because running a business is scary. It's hard. There's no manual. And where you're trying to get with your business is somewhere, right? You're trying to get to an island. You have a destination. And I picture a bunch of people rowing on the ship. And it's like, we're doing all this hard work. Everyone's rowing. It's like, great rowing, Nick. You're doing such a good job, but you're heading in the wrong direction, right? So to me, metric, you know, the island could be the opposite direction, but we're all patting each other on the back for all the hard work that we're doing. So that's why I really like metrics, because you know where you want to get to. Just break that down into actionable bite-sized metrics that you can reference on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and you can say, yeah, you know, we're on track. I wanted to add 5 customers this year. 5 customers means I have to have 10 meetings with people, right? So that's 1 meeting a month almost. And then to get 10 meetings, actually I have to get 100 people to come to my website. And, you know, how am I going to do that, right? And just breaking it into bite-sized, actionable pieces that you can track and make sure that you're actually executing to that, right? So if only 10 people visited the website this month and I wanted to get to 15, I'm not going to hit my goal, right? We're going to hit short of the mark by 20, 30%. And so what am I going to do next month? I'm going to work harder to get more people to the website. Or if I'm converting only 1 out of every 3 demos that I do for customers, or, you know, free quotes assessments, and I'm supposed to be converting 2 out of 3, what am I going to do to make that better, right? Because at the end of the year, I have to hold myself accountable to that goal that I set for myself and I set for the business. And, you know, what am I going to crack the whip on all of my technicians every day about, right? What are you supposed to be doing? Is it customer service, right? Do you want to be the best service provider in your area? Is it revenue? Is it profitability? You know, what is it at the end of the day that you want your company to be? Figure that out. That's your goal. Break it into an actionable plan, which is your metrics on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Wonderful there. So this will be the last opportunity. We're going to be closing this thing out. But if you've got any questions, stick those in the Q&A box real quick. And if not, we're gonna go ahead and, you know, let everyone out of class. Or I guess not early. We're kind of a little late, but that's okay. Ali, I want to thank you for a great conversation. It looks like there's no Q&A coming in at all that I can see. And so this has been actually really good. So I appreciate your input today.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and so we got in the audience, thank you very much for your attendance today. Hopefully we were able to give you a little bit of insight into how to approach your business to make it better by looking at metrics specifically around revenue. And then, as you can tell from the conversation, we've peeled away the onion to go well past revenue, but you kind of get a sense that that's your outer layers of the onion. You start digging deeper and deeper into your business and figure out ways to make it more predictable. So we're glad you could attend, and we'll catch you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.